explosive video, folks. This is Donald J. Trump, President Donald J. Trump's 10-year plan, his Agenda 2030, 2035. I apologize. I'm somewhat ill. I've been wrestling with chest and throat thing for about 2 weeks now. So now I'm going to go to a clinic because I just can't beat it. So I apologize, but that's where we're at. But this video is huge. It's massive, undeniable. I've went through Donald J. Trump's MOU with Venezuela and his latest executive order with Alberta. Nobody's talking about this stuff. He's got an agenda for 2030 to increase oil imports from Alberta primarily to Wyoming in a light pipeline that was proposed before. Now, folks, especially Albertans, but for all Canadians, because it affects us all nonetheless, USA was never designed for Canadian oil in any major way, shape, or form. Everything we do relative to the introduction to the Gulf is all new within this century, the 2000s. It was never for Alberta. USA's refining capacity was built for heavy crudes outside of North America because, contrary to what you're told, USA has a vast amount of oil reserves, much, much more than even Alberta. They have number one reserves for light, sweet oil. A lot of folks know that, maybe a lot of people don't, but wrongly people accuse the United States, the American government. They make videos and say, oh, look, they have all this oil under their feet, way better quality that can do so much more for fuel for Americans. What they don't understand is America, in its institution, its design, has had a system to care about those to come. America doesn't consume at an all-out outrageous rate, utilizing all their resources in 1 or 2 generations. They think ahead for many, many generations. America plans to be around for a very, very long time. Their system is set up to utilize a system of everybody else's resources that they process, utilize at home, and then sell out the excess on the world stage. They are into human resources, not natural resources. Sure, they'll process that in higher tertiary industries, but they don't waste their natural resources. They haven't done that since the 1700s, even before oil was something, even before natural gas was something. America enshrined these principles for all future generations. These laws are old, the system's old, it's everything that's America. Now, folks, Donald J. Trump signed an MOU, as you should all know, with Venezuela, but a lot of people don't know the contents of that MOU, that minor investment by the United States of America of $2 billion. The exact same investment they've now done with Alberta, where they don't have to put anything in Alberta. Alberta already built the Keystone XL pipeline. Donald J. Trump has a Midwest Wyoming route with pipelines reversed from all of that it takes in heavy crude from all other sources, not Canada. They reversed that for Canada as they put tremendous sanctions on Venezuela, reducing over 1.5 million barrels of oil out of America from Venezuela. That MOU, that $2 billion investment, and the work they're doing with Venezuela now is going to return by 2030 for just $2 billion. Another 1.5 million barrels of Venezuela oil that was up until the 2000s, where they transitioned to Alberta's oil feed. They reversed the pipelines. The flow goes the other way. Instead of from south to north and the Midwest, they're going the other way. Same pipeline reversed. Now they're taking Venezuela in this investment up to once again, 1.5 million barrels of oil a day, heavy crude to the Gulf refineries and even in California. This is massive. It's highly damaging coming by 2030 to Alberta, who also is going to be ramping up between 580,000 barrels a day to 1 million barrels a day of increased capacity to the United States, right down to the Gulf, now shared with that original production from Venezuela. This rampantly increases Canada's differential sizably. It's going to put Alberta in a place of $25 to $30 a barrel differential. Plus, you're supplying over 5 to 5.5 million barrels by 2035. This isn't the end of the MOUs with Venezuela. Chevron right now, under these MOUs pushed forward by Donald J. Trump, is planning to increase Venezuela production up to 3.5 million barrels a day by 2035. When you take, we're at about 4 million barrels a day, 4.1 million barrels a day, Alberta, without 1.5 million additional Venezuela competing barrels, to then 2035, 3.5 million barrels. Not only does the differential go way up, the oil prices drop down to where Donald J. Trump wants them to remain, between $50 and $70 maximum WTI. If you add on a $25 to $30 a barrel differential, that puts Alberta WCS and even CS down at $30 a barrel, between 30 and 45 tops a barrel of oil. And you're going to be selling 5.5 million barrels, not 4. From there, it even goes up higher as global need and want goes down, which is predicted to start in the next 10 years. It's called Agenda 2050. Trump's preparing to secure all of USA's control over that while the world goes its direction. And at the whole time, with all of this, USA's not dumping any more foreign direct investment into Canada, into Alberta oil sands, or any of it. It's all aimed at Venezuela, your direct competitor, who absolutely kept you out of that market, and the reason why we had no oil aspirations into the United States at the rates we are today. Because why? During the time of Ralph Klein, when we hit the 2000s, Venezuela was sanctioned. All of that economic sense was reality. Investment came. But with the current Venezuela MOUs, it's over for Canada by 2035. We're going to see a major impact with 2030, but the massive strain is going to be 2035. And all the while, poor Albertans, who are already today waking up to the reality, their fuel and energy costs are dramatically higher than even Ontario, who's buying the same product that's made in Alberta by Albertans that Albertans have to buy at their pumps, but not directly from Alberta. Alberta's selling it to USA. USA's processing it, mixing it, and then selling it back to Ontario for cheaper than the government of Alberta and the federal government are charging all Albertans. Now, this is Canada-wide. You're seeing ranges of it that far outpace Alberta, but Alberta's waking up today to $1.86 a litre of gas. In Ontario, I can tell you it's $1.79 right where I'm at here in the GTA today. $1.79. Some places $1.78. But that's the average Albertans are paying. You can see it in Edmonton and Calgary. This isn't going away. This is now forever. Albertans and all Canadians from every province and territory must pay for the government shortfalls. For everything they lose with the United States, they charge all of you domestically to make up the difference. They're getting rich, you're getting poor. This is never going to change. It's not the USA's fault. This is how Trump is designing the need for Canada, the 51st state, amongst all Canadians. We're bringing this party forward. We have to get it done because this is the only reality and truth we have to accept. USA's not doing it for us. Trump isn't even going to be in power. But I can promise you, whether it's a Republican or Democrat coming 2030 and beyond, none of this is going to change. If you think there's some kind of major change requiring massive pipelines in USA, you're sadly mistaken. If you think this requires massive US approvals and permitting for refinement and expansion in USA, you're sadly mistaken. This is about increasing USA reserves. It's about creating more glut and driving energy prices down while USA controls the global market. That's what's going to happen, and ensure domestic needs are completely met and are cheaper than any of the global WEF, WHO, and the rest of all the NGOs from the Palace of Nations that want to drive taxation and costs globally for every subject, serf, peasant, savage that they define. America isn't doing that. No Republicans, no Democrats in clear majority. Contrary to everything Joe Biden said, he stayed on with all of those things Trump did in his first administration. Joe Biden continued forward, quietly talking publicly a completely different way, but the reality of what was in place continued, meaning massive trade barriers, massive sanctions, tariffs on Canadian industries, critical Canadian industries that once lost don't come back. Now, the Trump administration keeps doing the same banter to all Canadian politicians who keep lying to you publicly, telling you that everything's going to be okay. They have all these debt-loaded funds, new created banks where they borrow against all of you to fill all these voids, left holes by the United States as it pulls back its investment from you at epic paces. Investment that's going into the UK, announced by your head of state, King Charles III. He did that live in USA in front of Congress. If you've missed that, he gave the USA a complete speech on how much that 30% foreign direct investment from the United States keeps UK alive, and that they can't go without it, and they'll take more, which means they'll take all of yours, Canada. As they go past 1.7 trillion, you've fallen from 1 trillion down to $485 billion, and it's going to continue to drop, and you're going to continually see your strategic industries who've already announced we have to move to the United States. We have no choice. That's not going to change. It's not going to be a part of any trade deal for protection from the USA. They've made it very, very clear in policy, in communication, in executive order, and absolutely in congressional committees, both House and Senate, Democrat and Republican. People get a lot wrong. They like to use AI without doing the research. People try to tell me how the USA works because AI told them. I even get Americans go, no, our committees go by majority party, majority seats. That's not what's actually recorded, even though that is the design for a lot of committees. Not all committees, but a lot of committees. It never happens because there's a negotiation process in the United States of America that when I explain this to people, Americans can go look, but they'll already get a light bulb off in their head and they'll go, oh geez, he's totally right. So folks, I've read now, it's taken me well over a month in as much spare time as I can find. I've read every single congressional committee report from 1960 to 2026. All of them. Hundreds of these committees, over 250, in fact, over all those decades. And I can tell you this, there is something called midterms, which is every other year, and then there's elections, which is every 4 years, there's midterms, which is every 2 years after an election, and then there's the election at the 4-year mark. What does that mean? It means Republicans and Democrats in their Congress negotiate these committees, and while the formula says that, the reality of midterms is light bulbs going to go off for Americans. You know that every election, no matter who's in power from the election, at midterms, 95% of the time, the American people vote against the government in power and give the congressional majority back to the party that lost the election. And do you know what that creates internally for these committees? They know this, and the way Senate works with 2-year and 4-year seating, junior and senior, they've began negotiating a very long time ago, and since 1960, they've been playing a game, a smart game, saying, we know this is going to happen, so we're not going to go with our sweeping majority. We're going to allow you to have close to the 50% in a clear, massive majority. It's like 52-48, where you'll see at worst case, best case scenario, 6-4 on seats. But it's usually 6-6 or 7-5 at worst case scenario. And why do they negotiate that? Because they know in 2 years' time, even though they have a 4-year term, they can be booted off the committee. So they say, we'll negotiate, and they make these committee negotiations every 2 years because they know it's going to flop the other way, and they don't want to lose their work, lose their position, so they make a deal with each other. And this has been going on absolutely since 1960, undeniable. You won't get this from AI because it can't critically think like that. It just looks at laws, spits out, well, I sourced it from all this. This is what's written in law, even though they came across the part where every single committee is negotiated in Congress. Every single one by the existing committees and minority and majority leaders of both House and Senate. They know that. AI knows that. But AI doesn't have the critical thinking to go, maybe I should read all those reports and see what the actual results were and what they've been since 1960. Then you find the 52-48 or 50-50. And you find it. You find it every time. That's why there's senior Democrats, senior Republicans, junior senators, congressional people or Democrats. Yeah, it's all that. But it's both House and Senate over and over and over again. This is undeniable. But this is the difference between people who actually do the work and use AI after the fact to cross-reference their work and see what they're right on and what they're wrong on. That's how I do it. I've done a lot of answers for people. I can't put the time into everybody or every comment. There's one where I really wanted to smash a guy, but I don't do it because I don't have the time. But I'm telling you on this analysis that myself and Benjamin Eble tagged in this is deadly accurate. We went through this more than a year ago now, that this could come to pass. And I'm telling you all, this Venezuela-Canada reality with the USA is absolutely coming to pass. It's to pit two competitors against each other. Canada, you don't want to be a Venezuela in a competition with Venezuela for the United States of America. If you don't understand why, that is your loss, because you are going the way of Venezuela. This 10-year plan introduced immediately upon January 6th, 2025 to 2035 has been Donald J. Trump's complete plan developed while he was out of office for the 4 years of Joe Biden. He worked all this out with his shadow people. He worked on it quietly for 4 straight years as he stayed off social media, kept a quiet, low presence, worked on all this tirelessly, aiming for this period he's in now to set the stage for all of this that's not going to go away long after Donald J. Trump, as he's told everybody, you will see, and Americans will know what I've done here during my term. While they don't get it now, they may not get it in midterms, but I think there's a lot of shakeup that's going to happen with midterms yet. But for Canada, if you wish to remain a competitor to the United States of America, you are in the same ranking as Venezuela. And that means you're going to that world status, second world status, and they may be elevated to first world status. Your debts are obscene. Mark Carney's managed decline will be absolute by 2035. There's no doubts about that. And if you don't see every Canadian, and especially Albertans, as you've been sold out by Premier Danielle Smith and Mark Carney, like no other Canadians in Canada, since it's your resource in your province, at least it's your provincial crown's resource, you're feeling the effects of what people in Venezuela felt, and they did the same thing 22 years ago. Bad America, it's all America. Folks, America doesn't run any carbon pricing schemes at all federally. Zero, zip, zilch. You see that in the price of gasoline in America. Even with Americans angry today, they are pale in comparison to what Canadians are paying. Even Albertans who own the cheapest sourced resource right at their fingertips. And Ontario's getting that for cheaper than you are right now. Wake up. This is what Canadians can't fathom. And these carbon pricing schemes only go up. And those oil companies say, hey, Canada, we're not paying. Well, they pay. They're paying. But they're saying, we're going to recoup it from who? Because Americans won't pay. We're going to recoup it from all Canadians. So all Mark Carney, Pierre Poilievre, and everybody are getting the companies to reclaim it from you Canadians, especially you Albertans who are waking up today to this reality. Nobody loves you in Canada, regardless of where you're from. No province, territory, none of you, none of your provincial leaders, absolutely none of your federal leaders are in your corner. Because if they were, they would be on a pulpit right now like myself going, folks, we can't be America's competitor anymore. We're not strong enough to take on the 50 states of the Union. Go on Consensus USA Today. They're almost 340 million people. You're 41 million people. They have a $30 trillion economy. You're just over 2. Wake up. And you're not growing. And you can thank your $2 trillion economy to that once was $1 trillion foreign direct investment from the United States. It's now halved, and it's going to continue to go down, 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 and your best and brightest, highest tertiary industries are gonna move to the United States of America. You've already lost your best and brightest. You've already lost so many businesses at the small and medium. And now you're about to go into some serious tertiary grounded fused industries that said, oh no, we're too vested in USA, but they're not going to eat the losses. You can't afford the subsidies you need to keep them alive. And they're not going to take the losses. They're already saying, we're out of here. Unless Mark Carney announces massive investment into them by borrowing against all of you, they're gone. And these are critical industries. They're critical to even Alberta's oil and gas. Do you think dye, moldings, and tooling isn't important to all of Alberta oil sands, all of Alberta oil and gas industry? That's epic center of that. Engineering, all of it, technologies, the actual tooling, the equipment. When you can't do that locally and you're at the mercy of the neighbor whom is also your fiercest competitor, wake up. You're going down the toilet. Mark Carney is forcing you by 2035. You will be in managed decline, meaning this is a failing country and they're managing it slowly until it's too late. And that is 2035. 2035, the damage will be far sweeping in Canada across all avenues, and you will wake up to a Venezuela reality. Like Venezuela's waking up today where the infrastructure's gone, aging, not taken care of. The people suffer, just like you are waking up today suffering, where we have all these resources, all this industry, but the people have to pay a tremendous amount. At the pumps, for taxes, you're debt loaded obscenely across every province, municipality, and of course the federal government. There isn't a single area of Canadian life that isn't being leveraged for government insiders, just like what happened to Venezuela 22 years ago. Mark Carney and his first ministers, all your premiers, and the clear majority are clearly on board with this. No bigger betrayer, no bigger worst case, absolute factual reality is Premier Danielle Smith, and her signing on 2 days before Donald J. Trump's equal $2 billion investment, which is all in the American side, to Keystone XL Light, which promises the same rewards and the same capacity as Venezuela, meaning by 2030, 1 million oil barrels from Venezuela, 1 million possible barrels from Alberta. Then they go to 3.5 million by 2035. No expert in Canada seemingly can do this work that's right in your face. Absolute. So why would that be? Because they all work for the agenda, the lie, the managed decline. They're all taking money, filling up their pockets, while you're all going to become the Venezuela truth. Absolute by 2035. Canada, the 51st state, ends all differentials. That 1/3 of the Canadian economy, that going to be 5 million barrels of oil to 5.5 million barrels of oil by 2050, 2035, you can end all differentials. That's massive for all Canadians. That's 25% upwards return on your resources, right off the hop. End of all tariffs, meaning all Canadian industries are free. 100% access to all 50 states, no more trade barriers. You get full equal access, unrestricted trade for all communities, all peoples in Canada. That doesn't exist currently. That doesn't even exist in the country of Canada between all 10 provinces and 3 territories. All of that immediately ends. All carbon pricing is gone in Canada. Zero, zip, zilch, as is the reality and truth of the United States of America entirely. Outside of the corruption of the state of New York with Alberta, yeah, that's right. Carbon pricing limited in New York comes from their deal with the province of Alberta. This is age old. It's been in place forever. Sorry, I meant California. I made a mistake there. That's a boo-boo. California, Alberta. Whereas New York and Quebec have the same agreement. Both corruptions, the Canadian corruption. You become Canada the 51st state, you clean New York and California. You save all those many more millions than there are you Canadians. Double your population between those two states are saved and their taxes go down. Theirs go down about upwards of 12 to 22% on energy. Do you know what yours go down by, Canadians? 42% Canada-wide. Yeah, that's tremendous savings. That's just the results of energy under Canada, the 51st state, and its impacts on manufacturing, construction, and all scientific tertiary industries, telecommunications, all of it high-tech, all fixed immediately and opened up to an entire American access. Huge Canadian abundance, like never ever achieved ever in Canadian history. Got to go all the way back to 1867, and then you still don't have it. This would be a first time ever Canadians. Folks, this is a major video. Donald J. Trump has put all his chess pieces in play. You can all look at this yourself. The absolute MOUs last month, Venezuela, now available on the U.S. government websites. You can look them all up. Undeniable. You can look at the executive order with all the Alberta infrastructure already paid for, debt loaded, and in place by Alberta, with a simple little tie-in and a one-state Wyoming. And sorry You don't need the Gulf because USA is going to plan to reverse pipelines for Venezuela. Again, costing nothing, literally nothing. The 2030 is $2 billion investment into Venezuela and a matching $2 billion investment into Alberta's connection. Has nothing to do with Alberta. Alberta's just going to be the supply. And that increases American oil by 2 million barrels. Just $4 billion by Donald J. Trump. You can go look at publications that looked at this. They said, well, that'll never happen. The Americans would have to take out Maduro. That's not going to happen. That's what your AI told you a year ago. No problem. Trump did that. Trump's got the MOU with Venezuela. And more importantly is the MOU for 2035. The investments now and Chevron over the next 9 years is going to materialize a massive increase. How anyone can't get this analysis out to you is only one answer. Manage decline. Don't tell Canadians. Keep them stupid. Keep them ignorant. Keep them raped and robbed. Transition them to a second world status. The Venezuela reality. That's your only options here. Venezuela, Canada the Venezuelan truth, or Canada the cherished 51st state. Call Donald J. Trump all the names in the book you want. Do the TDS all you want. But he was honest, and he was the only president. Because I promise you, Joe Biden smiled. Barack Obama smiled. We love you, Canada. He became chair of parliament. We love you. We want you. But all the while, they were working towards this hand in hand with the Republicans. Donald J. Trump is the only president to say, look, I love Canada. I like the royal family. I have history in UK. I don't want to hurt you. This is going to really hurt you people. Snow Mexicans. Where do you think that term comes from? Donald J. Trump was telling you and presenting a path out for your Canadian politicians who responded with, screw you. We're going to take all the wealth. We'll rob these filthy subjects and savages for all they're worth. They're too stupid to figure it out anyway. Look at the Venezuelans. They took it, didn't they? Look at the whole world of subjects, serfs, peasants, and savages. You can change those words around, like the words they use in places like Venezuela, Argentina, that Spanish, and even the Portuguese, right? But the reality is they mean the same thing. And those governments are designed the exact same way in the same colonial model where we're the superior first class and you're the peasants on our land. This country's for us, not for you. We own you. You're our slaves. It goes back to the old story of Robin Hood, 1215 Magna Carta, that Charles was introducing in Congress. Let me tell you the Canadian truth of Magna Carta, the once truth of Americans before 1776. But for us, British North Americans, who've always remained, became the Dominion of Canada. Magna Carta was for the House of Lords. It was a time when lords owned all the land. And just like South Africans and even African Americans in segregation who worked on the plantations after slavery, they didn't own the land. They worked it for the master in a lease capacity. It was a trick. That's how it's always been in constitutional monarchies. It's always what Canada is. It's why there's hardly any private property. And even in the 11% there is, less than half of that, so about 5% of Canada, is actually in the hands of the third-class Canadian. That's why our explosive property values in this country. And depending on which abused province you're in, again, the most abused being BC, Ontario, Quebec, and then it goes out from there. Most abused Canadians in Canada, with the very least amount of private property in a harsh climate where there's no reason for it. And your government does this to you with an explosive household debt to GDP ratio, far exceeding the United States, with a smaller country with a much larger population. How is that possible? It's because they have more land available to we the people, and they have real property rights for the people, real rights to resources for the people. Albertans truly believe that all those oil resources are theirs. They're natural gas. It's mine. Oh yeah? Show me one property owner who those rights belong to, because they don't. The Crown gets them. You only get surface rights. That's the best you'll ever get in Canada. Crown owns it all. Not only all the Crown land, all the resources, all the water, all of it. You people own nothing. Me, you, we own nothing. You lease land, really, because it's not real private property rights, not like America. Folks, this is a critical video. Share, share, share. Get it out to everyone you know. Trump has made his Agenda 2030 to fight the globalism, to make America first. In Canada, you're on the menu. And your government is managing your decline, keeping it from you. Donald J. Trump gave you an offer. He sees you don't want to take it. He's going to be moving on in the next election cycle. That's the end of his run. But he set the stage for the destruction of Canada, or a wake-up call with a left open invite for Canada, the cherished 51st state, where this doesn't have to be Canada's future. It doesn't have to be your future. You can be a member of the Union. You can enjoy everything you deserve for the first time in all of Canadian history. You can really enjoy your land, your resources, your humanity for the first time ever. Join the 1776ers, and not by violent means, but just by statehood in the Union. They don't even ask you to do that. But it's up to all of you. And it's not going to be some political savior from the USA. They will get you economically, and they are. They are. And anyone not telling you the Venezuela truth, it's because they're your enemy. They don't care what happens with Venezuela. All they care about is how much they can con out of all of you. This has always been monarchical rule. It's always been the reality of constitutional monarchies. It's the fate and the system that befell the Venezuelans. Do you think they learned their lesson this time around? Or do you think they're just going to fall right back into it if a government wanted to? I think they would fall back into it if a government wanted to exact that. Will that happen in the next 4 decades? I don't think so. But like Canada, who knows? Canadians fall into it. Share, share, share. Get the video out there. Critical knowledge. It's the only one of its kind. Deadly accurate, undeniable, 100% truthful. Love you all. God bless. Bye now.